Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Sunday podcast. I'm your host, David S. Dawson. Joining me today will be Steven Schwartz. We're going to talk about the new Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. That's the Star Wars land at Disneyland, which opens this month on May 31st. But Steve and I got a sneak peek. We'll come at you with more about it right after this.
Very nice too.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Well, let me finish them, please.
I only have one rule. Everyone fights, no one quits.
And we are here. Joining me is Steve Schwartz.
Hello, everyone.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing great. That's the first time I heard your opening stinger. I was just really enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. It's a bit of a step up from season one or whatever you want to call the original run of this show.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're having some fun with it.
Yeah. It's really cool. I really like it.
Well, thank you. So this is your first time on Sci-Fi Sunday version 2.0, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So Steve,
Yes.
You gave me the greatest birthday gift I could ever possibly hope to get.
It was my pleasure.
And took me to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge pretty much a week ahead of it opening. Thank you so much, man. It was like a freaking dream coming true.
The minute I had my I had what was called my cast showcase, where they gave us a sneak peek of all the merchandise and some of the food. And then I had the opportunity to test run the Millennium Falcon. And I immediately thought, oh my God, Dave is going to freak when he sees this. I said, please let there be a cast preview. And this was before they decided to have cast previews. And then finally they said, yes, we're going to have cast previews. You were the very first person I thought of.
Well, I'm honored that you thought of me because, as you know, Star Wars is a big deal for me.
Yes. I mean, it goes all the way back. It goes all the way back to when we were in college together and we did episode Mick.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't aware, Steve Schwartz and I produced and co-wrote a Star Wars fan film way back in the day. This is like circa 2001. We did Spoof Wars.
Yep.
Generation Jedi episode Mick. And
what a title.
Fun mouthful of a title. And we had a great time with it and had some fun. And my sister Teresa starred in it, and we made an R2 unit out of a trash can, and we'll
be circling back to that later.
Yeah,
in this
we pushed the limits of what we could do with what we had at the time, but we had a really good time doing that. And but no, Star Wars has been a huge part of my childhood. It's been a big part of my adult life as a filmmaker. It inspires me. It pushes me to want to do bigger stories and kind of grander things. Obviously I was only 2 when it first came out in 1977. You were a little bit older than me.
I was 12.
But I don't think people need a huge background on you and me. I mean, we're of the age.
Yes.
And we're males of that age who grew up with Star Wars. And instead of, cops and robbers and cowboys and Native Americans, we played Jedi and Sith and stuff.
Yes.
That's,
yes, we did.
That's what we did. So for me, walking into Galaxy's Edge was like stepping into every childhood dream I ever had. Suddenly, I was no longer in Anaheim. I was on the planet Batuu. It is so immersive. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I found out just recently that the entrance it dips down, so you have to walk down a bit of an incline, and you don't see the entrance. You don't see the park from outside it. You just see the entrance, and all you see is it rises up in front of you. The pathway, the street rises up in front of you. So you have to walk all the way down to the bottom of it and come up. And they did that purposely to, one, cut you off from the rest of the park. So you're completely immersed in a new world. And as you enter, it opens up in a film wipe, the way every Star Wars film opens in a wipe. So as you're walking up, it wipes up in front of you. It is absolute. I nearly choked when I heard that was the reason why they did it. It was so perfect.
It's a real subtle thing. And it's one of those interesting things because when you and I were done with the day, we took the train around the park. And for those of you who don't know, Galaxy's Edge is positioned kind of behind the Rivers of America and behind Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. So it's in that space on the north side of the park. And we were on the train hoping we could get a look, and you really can't see.
Not really, no.
Hardly anything out of like some roofs and the very tips of the spires from the train. They really designed Galaxy's Edge to be its own separate experience that feels completely removed from the rest of the Disneyland park. It's very interesting. So even when you're not in it, you can't look into it. And when you're in it, you can't really look out of it. And I think that's an incredible attention to detail that the Disney Imagineers really put a lot of thought into. You can tell they put a lot of thought into it.
Yes. I mean, we also just watched the live streaming dedication of the park to officially open it. And I got a little emotional when I was watching. Were you able to watch it?
Yeah.
Okay. Especially when Harrison Ford came up and he turned to the camera and he said, "Peter, this is for you." And I just,
I wish the lighting guy hadn't fucked up the cue, but it was very touching to see Harrison Ford up there and paying a tribute to Peter Mayhew. I was surprised they didn't pay any sort of tribute to Carrie.
Yeah, that was a little bit
in that moment.
Yeah,
but Peter's more fresh. You know, they've made their tributes to Carrie over the last year and a half. But fantastic to see Billy D. Williams up on stage, and even George Lucas, coming on, to see what Disney's doing. with his legacy. And I think Mark Hamill put it best. He's like, I stood here at Disneyland Park, many moons ago to open Star Tours, and thought, boy, I need to savor this because this will never happen again.
Yeah, nothing of this magnitude.
Now he's standing on stage opening an entire land dedicated to the films he was a part of. It's got to be surreal.
Yeah. I mean, just for me, and I'm sure for you, the minute you walk in and you see the Millennium Falcon, big as life. I mean, the first time I saw it, I got a little emotional. I got choked out. I'm an emotional person. What can I say? But I mean, I was taken back to 12 years old saying, I want to be on that. I want to fly that. They've got to make something where you can go into that. And finally, in my 50s and you in your 40s, we were finally able to do that and going inside and sitting at the chess table inside.
Yeah. Yeah. To be able to walk the halls, not just to stand outside of it. Although standing outside of it and staring up at the Falcon is it's kind of surreal, because on the one hand, you've imagined that moment your whole life, like, oh, the chance to get to see the Falcon in person, but to actually stand beneath it. And Disney did it right. Like, it's not, you look up at it, you can tell it is made of metal.
Yes.
It's not some cheap mock-up of the Falcon. Like, they put the money in and cut actual sheets of metal to make this ship. I can't wait to be in the park, like when it's raining, and experience that thing out in the rain. Like, it's a weird thing, but like that visceral, it exists in the real world sensation of it is something you can't really describe. And I can't wait to go back to the park at like different times of the year and experience the Falcon, like out in the natural environment, getting hit with weather and stuff. I think it'll be an incredible experience.
That was one of the great experiences for me watching the dedication was seeing it at night, because when we went in, we were very early in the morning, about 8:30 when we went in, and it was overcast and it was a little cold, it was a little misty, so it was a perfect weather to see that the greatest hunk of junk in the galaxy in that environment, in those weather conditions.
Mm-hmm.
But what was your experience? How did you enjoy the actual ride itself?
So the ride is
actually take us through the entire queue into the ride.
Yeah, so the ride's Smuggler's Run, and right now it's the only ride available in Galaxy's Edge. The other ride will be Rise of the Resistance, which opens later in the year, hopefully.
Yes,
and so temper your expectations if you go this summer. There's one ride in that land, but there's a lot of other things to do. That said, now the thing that I was hearing today is the intention is to never have the line longer than 2 hours for for Smuggler's Run.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see how they manage that. But the ride itself, you have to pass basically underneath the Millennium Falcon, which is sitting in a docking bay, to get into the line, right? So you basically walk right next to the cockpit, and you look straight up at the cockpit, and you can see in, and you can see the seats, and you feel the weight of the Falcon. Like that was something I didn't expect, was being able to kind of look at it and just go, God, that thing is massive.
Yeah.
It's really huge because it moves very nimbly in the movies, right? Like,
right.
So you kind of lose sight of the fact that it is in fact this giant, heavy piece of machinery. So it was really, really cool to get to see that as you're walking in. And then the line is designed to take you all around the back side of it. So you basically can do a full 360-degree walk all the way around the Falcon. And you get to spend a decent amount of time, provided how fast the line is moving. You get to spend a decent amount of time looking at the undercarriage, from the back side of it, and looking up into the engines. And then you go into this launch bay, and, it's typical Disney / Lucasfilm lines. If you've ridden Star Tours, you'll be familiar with what you're going to experience here. You walk in, it's a working spacecraft warehouse where they're working on ships, and you hear voices on the intercom talking about the testing things that they're doing, and stuff is moving and making noise and blasting smoke and doing whatever, and it's a visceral experience. That's the thing about all of this Star Tours to now Galaxy's Edge, is it's an immersive, visceral experience where these things you've watched in 2D on screen for years is suddenly all around you and feels real, and you can feel the history of it, and you can tell that they really thought these things through, and they came up with stories. Even the voices that are going through all the mechanics of fixing stuff inside this warehouse, they have stories that if you listen to what they're saying as you go through, you hear a complete story of what these characters are going
they're having
through.
a conversation about messing up, or don't tell Olga, don't tell the boss.
It's very cool, and again, it's those little subtle things that help make it feel real. And then, eventually you end up on the second floor of this bay, and the line runs along a long bay of windows that are looking right down onto the top of the Falcon. So you also get a very clear bird's eye view of the aft section of the Falcon while you're standing in line, which is incredible, because that's also the top of the Falcon that has like the most detail, right? You got all the
you see
all the intake manifolds and And
You see the satellite, the dish, and you see the gun turrets from the top.
Yeah, so it's just a really cool experience all the way around because they really designed this ride around people's love of this ship. And that is kind of the quintessential thing about this ride is it is all about the love of the Falcon. And so once you finally get to go in the holding area before you get onto the bridge of the Falcon is in fact the living quarters of the Falcon. So you get to spend, a couple minutes on the living quarters of the Falcon, sitting at the hollow chest table. You can go back to the bed where Luke laid when he had his hand chopped off, and Finn was laying there when his back was sliced open. That's the medical bed where the two of them laid.
There is one thing that I found out today.
Yeah.
Looking online, the buttons on the walls are interactive. So if you walk over to a button and press it, alarms will go off.
That's cool.
So there's even more to it. I mean, we even saw nests for porgs.
Yeah, there's porg nests all over it. Yeah, it's very cool. Like, yeah, it's a loving tribute to the Millennium Falcon, and it's also incredibly detailed. And there's little things everywhere. All the things you would expect to find on the Falcon. The training droid ball that Luke first learned to use his lightsaber against, and the blast shield helmet. That's all there. If you look for it, you can find it. There are two ways to get to the bridge, right?
Right.
You can go direct, as you've seen in the movies, where you go straight in, or you kind of wrap around the backside of the ship to let's face it, it's a secondary bridge. That's how they're getting multiple people in and out. But that access into there takes you into the little corridor where Leia was trying to turn that giant handle, and Han came in and kissed her, and so everywhere you turn, there's a little thing for you to see, and there's a little thing for you to enjoy, and just the little things like wall panels are missing, and it's exposed foam and cabling, and they got work lights up, because it's the Falcon, right? It's not pristine, and it's just a really enjoyable experience, and if you were a kid who grew up dreaming of being Han Solo or dreaming of being Luke Skywalker and going on an adventure in the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy, suddenly you're there, and it's just incredible. And then when you walk into the cockpit, I mean, come on, what at that point you're stepping into uber fantasy world, and essentially the ride is a video game. It's kind of a mixture of Star Tours and Mission to Mars, if you've ever done that at Walt Disney World, and any number of flight simulator type games that you have that you can play even at home these days. It's a very high frame rate digital projection that wraps all the way around the cockpit. I couldn't find the edge of the screen.
No, that was amazing.
I tried.
Yeah, the first time I did these, I was doing on test runs of this of the ride, and I was just looking forward. Now, when I was on with you looked up, and I said, "Okay, what's up there?" And I went, "Oh my God." we are fully surrounded by seamless video.
Yeah, it's a full immersion, and it's very cool. It's very cool. And then the ride, I don't think we got to ride the entire ride. I think they gave us snippets of it.
It's possible because they said
I wonder if what they've done to Star Tours, if it's possible that you'll have different missions on different trips.
I'm hoping that that's going to be the case, because just like when Star Tours in its first iteration, it got to be quite predictable and boring. It was the same thing over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, this is different because you're in with the different crew each time. So how your success in playing the game, because it's not just something sitting there and you're witnessing, you're actually controlling what's happening. So it'll definitely be different every single time because you don't know, how well someone can pilot, how well someone can shoot, how well someone can fix the ship in time, and how many of those those power rods that you're supposed to get that you can do, and how badly you damage the ship, and if Hondo is going to charge you for everything.
I'm firmly convinced that we haven't seen the whole ride. I think they held back on the previews.
Well, they held back on the test runs because as soon as we got there's a portion where you are leaving this planet.
Don't give it up too much, Steve.
They abbreviated. They ended the ride sooner than when we were on.
It still felt like an abbreviation where it ended while we were on it too.
Yeah.
So, but it's a digital ride.
Yes.
And I don't see any reason why there can't be, a half dozen or more different style journeys that you can take, and maybe they'll roll them out gradually over time.
Yeah.
But there's definitely nothing leading up to leaving in the cockpit. There's definitely nothing that's like permanently representative of the specific mission you're on. Mm-hmm. So I think it's definitely set up where they can vary it up, either over time or it is already designed to do so.
One aspect I will give away is I remember Harrison Ford talking to J.J. Abrams before they were going to be doing Force Awakens. This is, we're going to redo the Millennium Falcon, and his request is, make sure all the switches stick and move and stay in one place, because when we first did the first 3 films, none of the switches stayed.
Actually worked. Yeah, they didn't have any springs.
There was no springs to keep them in place. And when you go in, all the switches, click into place, and they feel solid. And it's, I immediately thought of that when I started hitting some of the switches. And when you enter in, there are switches on the walls that you can play with as well. So it's really, really well done. Highly detailed. Do we want to talk about Hondo?
Yeah. So, it would seem with the porgs on the ship and whatnot that in terms of Star Wars timeline, this definitely takes place post Han Solo, and sometime after Chewbacca and Rey have bounded around in it. So the ship's on Batuu. Hondo, if you're familiar with Hondo, he's a character from the Clone Wars and more so from Star Wars Rebels. He's a smuggler who's dealt with a number of characters from the cartoon universe, and he's hiring a crew to pilot the Millennium Falcon and man the guns and man the engineering and go on a smuggler's run and pick up supplies of coaxium, which is the explosive fuel from the Solo film. And he's an animatronic, so suddenly this cartoon has become a 6-foot-tall talking animatronic. And it's just cool. It's very cool, and it's very, very well done, and it's no mistaking the character. And I enjoyed it because it ties in all of the stuff that is canon, not just the films, but the cartoons as well. Mm-hmm. The whole ride is just exceptionally well done. The whole park is exceptionally well done. Everywhere you look, there's small details. Like the Batuu, as I've discovered, appears in the novels that have been coming out. I just started listening on Audible books. I've been listening to Thrawn Alliance, which is the Darth Vader and Admiral Thrawn book. And huge portions of that book take place on Batuu at Dark Spire, which is the outpost that Galaxy's Edge is. And there's details in the book about how the rock formations are ancient forests that have become petrified and have collapsed, and basically all these tall rock spires at the outpost are all ancient trees. And Steve, when you and I were walking around, I actually heard this about Batuu in the books after you and I went. And while you and I were there, I noticed at one point, I stopped. I said, Steve, take a look at this. These rock outcroppings are petrified trees.
Yes. And the detail, I mean, granted, yes, they are not real petrified trees, but the detail that went into creating them was just so impressive. You just stare at it, and it's, if you've ever seen petrified wood, you would swear that it's petrified wood. I mean, well, hats off to the Imagineers for that.
It gets back to that immersion thing about what they're doing with Galaxy's Edge. To see something that looks so real, A, is just a testament to the artistry of the Imagineers. But yes. B, from a story standpoint, it makes this land, this world, feel real and feel ancient. Right? Yeah. The outpost itself seems old, but it's also blended into this ancient rock formation.
Right.
And we're used to seeing petrified rocks. We're used to seeing petrified trees, and we know that those things are like millions of years old in our world. So the instant reaction to seeing it at Galaxy's Edge is like, oh, this is a real place and it's really old, and it really messes with your mind because you feel like you're in a real place. And it's just incredible. It's incredible what they've done. It's really fantastic. And it's across the board. Anywhere you walk in Galaxy's Edge, you turn and look, and you're gonna see things, you're gonna hear things that make you feel like you're on another planet. Even when you and I are walking around, they're pumping in the sounds of like alien insects in all the bushes and stuff.
Yeah, it would, you would stop and turn because you would hear something in the bushes, like something was coming out or coming towards you, and it was a little bit freaky every once in a while. But getting back to more about the detail, I mean, you even noticed when we were on the line for the Millennium Falcon, is that they utilized the stagecraft to create the queue. So you see blast shields as part of the queue.
Yeah, so like the walls separating the left line from the right line are the angled loading ramps going from under the Falcon into the garage, but the angled ramps are like tilted up, and so they're upright and they're creating part of the wall that separates the two lines. Like it's really cool little things like that. And then like instead of rope, it's cabling, it's power cabling and stuff that's running along.
It's steel power cable.
Yeah,
steel power cabling that's made to look authentically like a heavy cable. And you just see like wires, exposed wires just hanging down and being strung around, and grease stains and blast points. And you see how ancient this was. It kind of reminded me a little bit when Star Tours first opened, because it used to be, something that was much older that took place during, what we saw as the original trilogy, because everything is so much older that the Jedi Order was gone, and that the Republic had fallen, and the Star Speeders were pockmarked and dirty, and the whole spaceport was that way. But with the new iteration of the ride, after the new trilogy came out, everything was new, as if it was in the original trilogy. And
earlier than the original trilogy.
Earlier than the original trilogy. So to add to the fact that, you're going to be going to so many other worlds now. And to look at Imagineering that goes into immersing the public and the guests when they come in. I mean, when I was in my showcase, they talked about the first time that they went to a land to make it immersive was when they did Toontown. They wanted to have that as if what it would be like to walk into a cartoon.
Mhm.
And that's what this was like. Then the next step went up exponentially was when they had Cars Land.
Yeah, and
You are
Cars Land is
literally-
amazing too.
Cars Land, you are literally plunked right into Radiator Springs. They have not forgotten one detail about Radiator Springs when you walk into Cars Land. And then they top themselves with this, with Galaxy's Edge. Is just absolutely fabulous.
And what's really cool about Galaxy's Edge is it's not just Anaheim. Walt Disney World is going to have Galaxy's Edge as well. It opens in late August. And so either one of the Disney parks you choose to go to in America, you're going to get to go to Batuu. And it's really cool. Steve, that's all the time we have for the episode.
Alrighty.
I loved going to Galaxy's Edge. I can't thank you enough for helping make that a reality for me
My pleasure, my
before
friend.
every other asshole gets to go.
So it was my pleasure to bring your asshole into Galaxy's Edge.
I'm
One
gonna
person
cut
did
that
ask
out.
me
That
what are the
sounds
bathrooms.
gross.
Yes. One person did ask me what do the bathrooms look like, and we never used them, so
I did. You're right. We didn't go into the bathrooms there.
we didn't see the bathrooms.
Interesting.
Interesting. Oh, well.
Well, anyway, thank you again, Steve. And thank you all for listening to Sci-Fi Sunday Podcast version 2.0. This is our Galaxy's Edge special report. We will be back with more Sci-Fi Sunday throughout the summer. Obviously, we got some big things coming up like Spider-Man. So we'll be geeking out and having a great time discussing all of the fun pop culture things that we can this summer. We may have some stuff coming at you from Comic-Con as well. We'll see how things are going as July rolls around. And until next time, I'm your host, David Dawson. I've been talking with
Steven Schwartz.
And may the Force be with you.
Always.